The tribunal chamber was impossibly vast, its walls made of a shimmering crystal that refracted the distant star systems into fractured rainbows. Suspended above, the princess's crown of floating plasma beads cast shifting lights over the gathered assembly of alien scholars. The air was tense, humming faintly with anticipation, and every observer's gaze was trained on the human standing at the center of the polished obsidian floor. Jay's shoulders were squared, hands tucked loosely behind his back, his expression deceptively calm. He was acutely aware that the fate of human credibility, and apparently, interstellar diplomacy, rested on the next few minutes. "State your claim again," the princess demanded, reclining with the languid grace of someone who had never known defeat. Her tone carried authority, curiosity, and a sharp edge of amusement that made even the tribunal's elder members sit straighter. For a moment, the air seemed to thrum with the weight of expectation. "For the record," she added, voice softening just enough to tease, "your species supposedly mates year-round. Is that true?" Jay took a measured breath, feeling the collective scrutiny pressing down on him. The alien legal system was notoriously unforgiving, and their rituals of observation were exacting, designed to catch even the smallest deviation from truth. He glanced sideways at the translator drones hovering silently around him. Their lenses flickered as if they themselves were apprehensive. "Yes," he said slowly. "Humans can mate all year. Famine, solar storms, Mondays, it doesn't matter. We persist." A sharp intake of breath echoed through the chamber, followed by murmurs of disbelief. One of the elder scholars gagged audibly, clutching at the flowing robes that seemed impossibly heavy for his thin frame. Jay had seen the footage of alien court reactions before, but seeing it in real life was a different kind of performance art entirely. The princess squinted, her eyes narrowing like a predator assessing prey. "You expect me to believe that your species can maintain such reckless, reproductive consistency?" Her words were precise, but her amusement had not entirely faded. Jay smiled without humor, his stance unchanging. "Trust me," he said. "We don't need seasons, permissions, or ceremonial furniture. That's all optional." The chamber erupted into chaos. One scholar rifled frantically through a scroll, as if hoping some forgotten codex would provide a loophole or punishment guideline. Another muttered something about the collapse of moral fluids, an expression that made less sense the more Jay thought about it. The head scholar, who looked as though a silver tree had tried to mate with a squid, finally cleared his throat. "By High Matron Law," he intoned, "a demonstration is required." Jay blinked. "Wait. A demonstration?" "Yes," the princess said, leaning forward, her eyes glinting with a cruel curiosity that made Jay's pulse quicken. "Observable proof. On royal grounds. You will show that your species can sustain activity of this kind without faltering." The tribunal collectively gasped, several scholars recoiling as though someone had dared to suggest they wade into a pit of fire unprepared. Jay opened his mouth to protest, but even he could not find the words that would convince them of human stamina without actual evidence. "You seriously want me to prove this while everyone watches?" "Yes," she said flatly. "But no kissing." One scholar whispered a question into a translator, confusion spreading like wildfire, and the scroll flipper in the back began muttering about procedural collapse. Jay took a slow, deliberate step forward. "Fine. Protocol demonstration. Let's get it over with." He met her gaze, unflinching, though a faint twinge of nervous excitement ran down his spine. The princess stood, her long frame towering, and the tribunal recoiled instinctively, casting long shadows that stretched across the obsidian floor like dark fingers of anticipation. Medical observers, translator drones, and several aides lined the sides of the chamber. Waivers were signed, precautionary devices deployed, and someone whispered that the entire event might be broadcast live on Royal Interstellar channels. Jay ignored it all. He focused on the task at hand. This was a test of endurance, credibility, and if necessary, sheer human audacity. As they moved toward the ceremonial platform, the princess gave him a once-over. "Don't think I'll be impressed by technique alone," she said. "I've studied your species' catalog of positions. Some of it is absurd." Jay grinned. "We call that a party trick." Her lips twitched with the barest hint of a smile, though her eyes remained calculating. "Your whole anatomy is a party trick," she muttered under her breath, almost to herself. "Exactly," Jay said, leaning closer. "That's how we like our partners, too." Her brow arched. "You're joking." "Try me," he whispered. And with that, they reached the ceremonial platform, where the tribunal's eyes followed every motion with a mixture of horror, fascination, and something dangerously close to admiration. The first movements began cautiously, ceremonial, almost academic. The observers' whispers filled the chamber, recording every detail, the tension in muscles, the timing of breaths, the reaction of the crowned princess. Jay's mind worked as methodically as ever, noting that eye contact, rhythm, and subtle shifts in posture were as critical to this demonstration as any physical stamina. Halfway through, a young biologist gasped audibly. "He's maintaining eye contact while executing the procedure." Another scholar muttered something about a war crime on planet Davox. Jay didn't miss a beat. He kept moving in sync, measured, calm. Each observer's gasp or fainting spell added an almost comical soundtrack to the intensity of the room. The princess' initial disdain softened imperceptibly as they continued, her breaths quickening, her focus torn between protocol and something far more personal, immediate, and dangerous. Whispered warnings, translator notes, and sudden gasps punctuated every movement. The ritual, or demonstration, had escalated beyond scientific observation. It was now a contest of will, endurance, and unspoken attraction. Minutes passed, though in the charged atmosphere of the chamber it felt like hours. Jay noted subtle physiological changes in the princess, micro-tremors, shifts in balance, brief involuntary reactions, each one meticulously observed by the tribunal, and each one a secret thrill to him. He allowed a faint smirk as he realized how unpredictably human chemistry could affect even a species famed for discipline. Finally, just as one observer began muttering that the demonstration was unrepeatable magic, the princess leaned back, momentarily breathless, and her eyes flicked toward him with a new expression. It was not annoyance, nor amusement. It was curiosity mixed with a reluctant respect. Jay held her gaze, noting the microseconds of hesitation that told him she was assessing, recalculating, wondering if humans were even more unhinged than the intergalactic reports suggested. And then the head scholar's voice broke through the silence, trembling, reverent, incredulous. "For the record, your species is terrifying. And yet, strangely, admirable." The chamber froze. Every observer waited for the next move. Jay knew the moment of truth had arrived. And that's when a soft, almost imperceptible sound from the princess made him pause, a shift in posture, a subtle gasp, and he realized that the trial had only just begun. The tribunal's murmurs had barely settled when Jay noticed the subtle shift in the princess' stance. Era's body language, even in the midst of rigorous protocol, betrayed curiosity, and something far more dangerous, engagement. She wasn't just observing, she was participating, testing boundaries she didn't yet fully understand. Jay's smirk widened ever so slightly. Humans excelled at adaptation, and this was shaping up to be an interstellar lesson in endurance, patience, and control. "Your next sequence," the lead scholar intoned, voice quivering, "must demonstrate sustained capacity across multiple positions, adhering strictly to protocol." The statement sounded formal, detached, but every word carried the tension of expectation. Jay leaned toward Era, whispering, "Protocol, huh? Sounds like we're about to rewrite history." Era's eyebrows shot up, a mix of disbelief and subtle amusement. "History or your ego?" she murmured, her tone clipped but laced with intrigue. Her eyes flicked to the tribunal, then back to him, as if daring him to defy convention further. Jay didn't hesitate. With careful precision, he guided the next phase of the demonstration, his movements confident yet measured. Every micro-adjustment, every controlled motion was calculated for maximum efficiency while minimizing fatigue, a human balance of instinct and experience. Era followed, her body responding to the rhythm he set, yet maintaining the formality expected by her alien observers. Observers were scribbling frantically. One of the younger biologists whispered, I think I can feel the gravitational distortions in the chamber. Is that expected? Another elder muttered something about physiological anomalies beyond recorded parameters. It was chaos, but the kind of chaos that left Jay unfazed. He was in his element, human adaptability shining brighter than any alien skepticism. Your species, Era said, catching her breath, is inconsistent. I cannot predict when or if this will end. Her voice wavered just slightly, betraying a tension she likely intended to conceal. Jay's smile softened. That's the beauty of it, he replied. Unpredictable doesn't mean uncontrollable. He noted her physiological responses, tiny shifts in pulse, subtle changes in breathing patterns, the way her muscles tensed and relaxed, and adjusted accordingly. Humans could read bodies like instruments. Even an alien with centuries of refinement could not match the intuitive understanding. Minutes stretched, yet the chamber remained entranced. Translator drones buzzed quietly, attempting to codify every subtle interaction into legal and biological reports. A scholar fainted, some scribbled equations on floating pads, and one young observer whispered that he believed poetry could be written from observing humans in motion. Jay could almost hear the universal gasp of disbelief as the princess mirrored each motion, alternating between skepticism and reluctant compliance. You maintain control, even under scrutiny, Era said between measured breaths. Her gaze sharpened. That is disturbing. And impressive. Jay chuckled softly. It's what humans do. We adapt. We endure. We persist. Her eyes narrowed. Persist. Is that how you justify this? The edge in her voice suggested a challenge, but her body language suggested she was already caught up in the rhythm, the scientific observation forgotten momentarily. The tribunal began shifting uncomfortably, unsure how to respond. Some scholars were openly noting emotional entanglement as an anomaly. Others whispered about declaring Earth males a national hazard and drafting interstellar safety protocols. The absurdity only fueled Jay's resolve. He knew humans had a way of turning even structured experiments into unpredictable experiences. Era's eyes glimmered with equal parts challenge and reluctant amusement. Grand finale, if you survive it, she said, her tone teasing yet edged with undeniable curiosity. The tribunal murmured nervously. Whispers about human capacity and interspecies unpredictability filled the air. Some scribbled, others fainted, but no one could look away. Jay moved with precision, maintaining a rhythm honed over countless human experiences, his focus entirely on Era's subtle cues. Each motion was carefully modulated to sustain both control and responsiveness, ensuring the demonstration met both protocol and endurance benchmarks. Era matched him, her grace under pressure both instinctive and learned from years of ceremonial training. The observers were captivated, caught between admiration and disbelief. Minutes blurred, the tension stretching into a near tangible force. The translator drone struggled to keep up with the subtle shifts, murmuring alerts about physiological anomalies, emotional entanglement, and unprecedented endurance. One elder muttered that Earth males should be classified as a strategic hazard, while another scribbled notes, as if trying to catalog magic. You defy every expectation I had, Era whispered, breathless, her voice a mix of incredulity and fascination. I cannot predict your limits. Jay's smirk softened. Limits are relative. Adaptation is objective. He noted the micro-tremors in her balance, the slight hitch in her breath, and adjusted his rhythm accordingly. Humans had a gift for reading bodies as instruments. No alien code could fully capture that nuance. Era's gaze flicked to the tribunal. They will never accept this as valid, she muttered, though a blush tinged her cheeks. Jay leaned closer, lowering his voice. Valid? Maybe not. Memorable? Absolutely. The room seemed to pulse with tension, every observer acutely aware that they were witnessing something unprecedented. Translator drones buzzed frantically, trying to codify the human-alien interaction into law and science. One young biologist whispered that he might need decades to recover from what he had just witnessed. Another scholar muttered that the human's method was both a physiological marvel and a psychological anomaly. Era's posture shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly. Jay noted the minor adjustments, micro-reactions that revealed both compliance and intrigue. Every movement, every breath was part of a carefully orchestrated sequence, a dance that blurred the lines between protocol, endurance, and chemistry. You're relentless, Era admitted, her voice dropping to a near-confessional tone. I can't predict when you'll stop, or if I want you to. Jay's grin deepened. Persistence is part of human nature. Unpredictability is part of the game. And curiosity? That's the secret ingredient. For a brief moment, the chamber fell into a charged silence. Then, a soft gasp from Era betrayed her exhaustion, and perhaps, a subtle acknowledgement of the connection forming between them. Jay recognized it immediately, the tipping point where protocol met emotion, where control met vulnerability. Humans excelled at improvisation, and this was the ultimate test. Minutes stretched further. Observers scribbled, whispered, and fainted intermittently. The human's ability to read cues, adapt instantly, and maintain rhythm was unmatched, pushing both participants to the edge of endurance. Era's expressions flickered, disbelief, frustration, curiosity, and something dangerously close to admiration. Finally, Jay slowed, just enough to allow Era a moment's breath. How's that for protocol? He asked, eyes glinting. Era inhaled sharply, chest rising and falling rapidly. Her tail flicked once, a subtle sign of regained control. Protocol shattered, she admitted softly, a wry smile tugging at her lips. But fascinating. Terrifying. And somehow, memorable. The tribunal erupted into debate. Some insisted the human demonstration violated every conceivable law, while others argued that the exercise had revealed unparalleled human capability. One elder suggested drafting a treaty recognizing human reproductive persistence as a strategic resource, while another fainted outright. Translator drones buzzed, failing to capture the sheer absurdity and brilliance of what had transpired. Jay helped Era steady herself, their hands brushing briefly, a subtle moment that carried more significance than protocol or observation. You're incredible, he whispered. Adaptation, control, endurance, all of it. You made it work. Era's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability surfacing. You made this impossible experiment possible, she said, voice quieter now, less teasing, more sincere. The room seemed to hold its breath as the unspoken connection deepened, the line between observation and interaction blurring completely. Jay leaned back slightly, scanning the chamber. Science is satisfied? He asked lightly, though a faint smirk hinted at lingering challenge. One voice, trembling with awe, spoke from the edge of the room. We have observed human mastery. Emotional, physical, and strategic. Protocol irrelevant. Record everything. Era shook her head, half amused, half exasperated. You've ruined interstellar diplomacy, in ways I never imagined. Jay grinned. Improved it, actually. Memorable, unprecedented, and undeniable. As the demonstration progressed, Jay introduced subtle variations, small adjustments in pace and angle, creating micro-challenges that tested not just stamina but focus. Era's reactions became increasingly involuntary, the strict formality she tried to maintain slowly giving way to instinct, curiosity, and perhaps even the faintest touch of enjoyment. You're relentless, she whispered, her voice a mixture of warning and confession. Her body betrayed her controlled facade, muscles trembling subtly as she sought balance, control, and compliance simultaneously. Jay smiled, noting the precise timing and rhythm of her responses, and adjusted accordingly. "And yet," he said, leaning closer, "I haven't even shown my full technique." Her eyes widened. "Technique? Are we still discussing protocol, or is that personal flair?" He grinned. "A little of both. Humans like to innovate under pressure." The chamber's tension escalated. Observers were scribbling furiously, translator drones buzzing in panic, and one young scholar whispered that the human before them might just redefine the concept of interspecies diplomacy. Jay's eyes flicked to Era, whose composure wavered for a heartbeat before she regained her posture. Yet there was no denying the subtle shift. The princess was intrigued, challenged, and in ways she would not admit aloud, invested. Minutes became an unbroken sequence of precise movements, rhythm, and subtle interaction. The human's capacity for control, endurance, and responsiveness was unmatched, even by a species that prided itself on ritualized discipline. Jay knew the key: observation without hesitation, adaptation without hesitation, humor without breaking focus. Era's gaze finally softened. "You make a mockery of my court," she said, a hint of incredulity threading through her words. "And yet, I cannot deny your effectiveness." Jay chuckled softly, leaning in, his confidence unwavering. "Effectiveness is relative," he murmured. "Some call it endurance, others call it chaos management. Humans just call it Tuesday." The tribunal was now openly whispering among themselves. Some argued that the human's behavior was physically dangerous to witness. Others suggested that this might be the most entertaining demonstration they had ever observed. Translator drones buzzed erratically, failing to categorize the chaos into formal language. Era's body shifted subtly again, involuntary micro-adjustments betraying her rising curiosity and unwilling compliance. Jay noted it, adapting seamlessly, guiding the sequence with precision, allowing her autonomy while maintaining control. It was a dance, a negotiation, and a subtle demonstration of dominance, all under the guise of strict protocol. "You are unreasonably composed," Era admitted, her voice dropping to a softer, almost intimate tone. "I cannot predict your limits, and yet, you seem to operate beyond them." Jay smirked. "Limits are subjective. Persistence is objective. And humans excel at both." A soft, audible gasp echoed through the chamber, this time from Era herself, betraying a brief moment of vulnerability. It was subtle, fleeting, but enough to send a ripple of shock and fascination through the observing scholars. Some scribbled frantic notes, others whispered about redefining reproductive law, and one young biologist muttered that he might need a lifetime of study just to understand human physiology. "Are you ever going to stop?" Era asked, her tone equal parts challenge and reluctant admiration. Jay's eyes flicked to hers, a faint smirk playing at his lips. "Stop? Not until you do." A tense silence filled the chamber. Every observer leaned forward, unsure how to react to the unprecedented display of endurance, adaptability, and mutual tension. The princess' breathing was measured but uneven, her pulse and posture betraying the equilibrium she attempted to maintain. And then, just as the observers began murmuring that the demonstration might have reached its peak, Era's tail flicked sharply. Her eyes narrowed. A single word, whispered in her native tongue, caused one scholar to drop his spectacles in disbelief. The translator drone buzzed urgently, failing to keep pace with the implications of the utterance. Jay paused, brow raised. "That sounded important," he said casually. "Care to translate?" Era's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, her eyes glinting with a mixture of frustration, amusement, and something dangerously close to curiosity unrestrained. "You'll find out," she murmured, stepping back slightly, enough to reset the rhythm, enough to force Jay to react. The chamber held its collective breath. Jay adjusted instantly, noting the subtle shift in gravity and momentum, adapting with the ease of someone who had learned that unpredictability was merely an invitation to excel. And just as the tribunal prepared to record yet another entry in their increasingly frantic logs, Jay realized something. The human advantage was not merely endurance or technique. It was the ability to anticipate, adapt, and thrive in chaos, and chaos had never been so deliciously concentrated as it was in this alien courtroom. The room was silent for a heartbeat, every observer frozen in anticipation. Era's slight smile, combined with the subtle shift in her stance, was enough to tell Jay that the next phase would test not just physical endurance, but emotional composure. Humans thrived in uncertainty, and Jay intended to exploit every variable. He leaned in, voice low but confident. Ready for round 3? Or shall we call it the grand finale? A soft silence followed. Observers were processing, still scribbling, whispering, or fainting. Translator drones attempted to codify the demonstration, but even their advanced algorithms failed to capture the full spectrum of what had occurred. Era finally exhaled, letting herself relax just slightly. What happens now? She asked, voice low, almost intimate. Jay's smirk returned, steady and confident. Now, we wait to see if the galaxy is ready for humans. Her lips curved into the faintest of smiles. Or if I am ready for you. Outside the chamber, whispers surged. The tribunal debated endlessly, uncertain whether to draft new laws, quarantine Earth males, or simply record this as an unforgettable lesson in human unpredictability. Somewhere, a translator drone buzzed, noting, humans, terrifying, unhinged, effective, and memorable. Jay and Era exchanged a final glance, equal parts challenge, amusement, and acknowledgement. The demonstration had concluded, but the consequences, and the curiosity it sparked, would echo far beyond the walls of that chamber. Humanity had proven itself in ways the universe had not yet anticipated.